I'll tell you who I am first. My name is Ian Light. I'm the MD and CEO of Eiffel Corp, or Eiffel Investment Group. We're a company that was founded in 1998, and we were essentially the pioneers of e-learning in South Africa. We were the first company to bring a learning management system, the e-learning platform, to South Africa, and the University of Pretoria was our first customer. And over the last, as I said, 22 years, we have been specialists in e-learning. We have several different products that facilitate e-learning and support that side, mainly in the university sector. But over the last 5 or 6 years, we've diversified quite a lot. And now we've changed away from e-learning as a focus. It is still a big part of our business, but our big focus now is on the life cycle of the student. So there are bigger aspects there than just e-learning. So from student recruitment and management in the student information system, so how student comes on board to the university, how they choose their subjects, residence allocations, all of that, right through to work readiness programs and helping with employment and everything in between. So our focus now is on sort of that student life cycle thing. And in that process, there's 5 or 6 different software products that facilitate each part of that. E-learning obviously is one of them. Essentially, make life easier for the student. So if you think about, at the end of the day, whether it's e-learning or school or university or whatever, the student is the customer, is the end user. So what we do is we facilitate and we help the university streamline that process, a better user experience for the student. We have school clients as well, and we have colleges and TVETs and all of that, but the university, the HE sector has been our primary focus, and it is still the biggest part of our business. Now, every university in South Africa uses us for 1 or 2 or 3 or perhaps that full student life cycle. Learning management system essentially is there to facilitate online learning, whether it's in a blended format. So essentially, if COVID wasn't around and students attended varsity, they would have a lecturer in front of them, and they would have the learning management system. That's what you call a blended version. So there's some online learning, but you're still getting delivery in person in a lecture theatre or what have you. The other thing the learning management system facilitates is distance learning or online learning. Okay, and that does mitigate COVID quite a lot, because if a university, and not all universities have robust e-learning, that next question will sort of get to that, but most universities in South Africa seem to have fairly decent learning management systems with content, and that then facilitates students learning remotely, and that's online learning, so they don't have to come into contact with fellow students or lecturers, and then obviously that mitigates the risk of travelling to and from university or staying at residence or being on campus with 20,000-30,000 people. So it certainly does play its part there.
So is it like an extra curriculum on the side, or is it?
No, it's 100% integrated into the curriculum. So essentially, a lecturer, let's say I'm an English lecturer, I will stand up in front of my classes and I will teach them, but I will use the learning management system. All the content, everything that we know, whether it's interactive content or PDFs or PowerPoint presentations, it's kind of stored in the learning management system. So that is like the portal where people go, and then typically what happens is the lecturer will teach from that, using that as a medium to engage with the students. Stereosoft is a company based in India. Their speciality is student information system. So again, learning management system is that online learning portal. Student management system is essentially managing the university. Okay, so as I said, from admissions to graduations, residences, room booking facilities, just like a SAP in the commercial world. The whole university is run from that. We've been partners with them for about 4 years, and they're one of the most innovative and modern SIS student information system platforms around. We've sold some fairly large deals here in South Africa. So the Avitech Group ran on it, and Stellenbosch University signed a 10-year deal last year with Stereosoft. So we're making big inroads into the South African market. And why it's good is because it's relatively cost effective as student information systems go. You know, it doesn't come out of Europe and America. Those are pricey. Yeah, they've got a very big footprint in North Africa and the Middle East, and then we are actually assisting Stereosoft to sort of push out into the European and US markets. In this business, it's all about experience. There's a lot of companies out there at the moment that, as I said to you earlier, are trying to get into e-learning because there's been such a demand for it. And essentially, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding out there as to what e-learning is, and a lot of companies think they can deliver e-learning, but at the end of the day, it's very specialized, and these sorts of systems are quite complex, and it's you need some form of education background or education experience to make it a meaningful experience for the learner, who's the student at the end of the day. I think there's a big misconception that if you buy a device, whether it's a laptop or an iPad or a tablet, that's e-learning. It's not at all e-learning. It's the content that you can access on those devices which makes the difference, right? Putting a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation that's not e-learning. That's just having like a Kindle or a book behind glass, right? So going back to your original question, it's the content that is important. Engaging, pedagogically sound content that is interactive and speaks to the curriculum and keeps the students' attention. That's what e-learning is about, and that is not easy to do. That takes years of training, studying, education, and experience. So the challenges that we face, Eiffel Corp, in this sphere is the one I've just mentioned now. The misunderstanding or the misconception of what e-learning is. And I think trying to explain to people that it's not as simple as that. That is a big barrier, firstly. Another issue that I think we find, especially with the online learning, is the cost of data in South Africa is expensive. Okay, it's different when you're on campus or you're in an office like this. You generally have Wi-Fi, so when the students are on campus, they have access to that. But in a time like this, with COVID and everyone's at home, and they're still expected to continue with the curriculum, it's not as easy for everyone to access it. So the learning management system is there to facilitate learning off campus. So fundamentally, the theory is fantastic, but the cost of data, logging on, downloading big documents, interacting with students in forums and all of that is a big challenge in South Africa and Africa. From a Stereosoft specific I think we haven't had too many challenges with them. I think the biggest challenge with a big enterprise system like that is implementation. These are, I'll use Stellenbosch University for example. There are 20 odd people on the project team, and there's a 3 to 4 year implementation. That's why they've gone with a 10-year deal, because you don't want to sign up with a 3 or 4 year deal and it takes 3 years to implement it. So these are big fundamental changes for the universities, and I think that's problematic from a change management perspective. That's why we have a very strong change management program here with people that are sort of have years of experience in that field, and they work together with the technical project team. Again, Stellenbosch is just one example of that, and they are then facilitating that smooth rollout at the universities. The cost associated with e-learning as well is it's not cheap, you know. I think the way that education is going globally is the cost of higher education. Let's focus on the universities globally. It's expensive, right? I think there's a lot of research that comes out of America where a graduate can be saddled with $300,000-400,000 US of debt coming out of a university, 3 or 4 year university program. Same in the UK and Europe, same here. It's just a very expensive way, but it is a very traditional way of how we've operated in society for many years. I think universities will always still be around and have a part to play, but I think the way things are going and the US is actually at the forefront of this, is the micro-credentialing. So all these short little courses add up to credits. A lot of times we all do online courses and all that, and it's nice to have that as a skill, but it doesn't count towards a formal qualification like a degree and what have you. You have to go to a registered university of that. What is happening now is a lot of institutions, and a lot of the big Ivy League institutions in the States are driving this, is where they've got a lot of these short courses, and so you can pick and choose. You don't just have to go down into a particular field, and that sort of counts towards programs and all of that. That fundamentally changes how someone who's full-time at university, like when I was at varsity, get up, go to lectures, come back and all of that. I think that whole, the internet, this micro-credentialing, that's changing that whole approach. Universities will always have their part to play, but I think that traditional model of 30 or 50,000 students sitting on campus in lecture halls with 4,000 people listening to one lecture, I think that will still be around for a while, but I think we are moving away from that in, say, 10, 15 years to a point there. I just don't see that sector. Firstly, as I said, it's expensive, etc., and more people need access to university globally. And there aren't countries, including South Africa, not building new universities. So the way to sort of be more inclusive is by engaging with people from a distance learning perspective, but online e-learning. So I think that there's a lot more issues to solve in South Africa than, I think we have many legacy issues in South Africa, and I think it would be wonderful to say that our kids will be developing apps in 5 or 6 years, but I think there's other issues like running water and toilets and all of that. I think obviously you have some of the more privileged schools and all of that, but I think it's very difficult to and perhaps not correct to compare like for like. Japan, Korea, Singapore, and they don't have our issues that we've had from a legacy perspective, and also they spend a huge amount of money on their education system. Unfortunately, with the inequality in South Africa, I don't think there's enough money to get our school systems like that in the short term. So I think there's some fundamental things that schools need before that is even sort of looked at. Does that make sense to you? Unfortunately, I'd love to give you a different answer, but personally, I think you got you've got to sort of walk before you run, and I think developing apps in a primary school, that's like sprinting. We've got a long way to go there. There is currently a big disconnect between school leavers going into university because the environments are very different. Every university in South Africa has online learning in some shape or form, and we interact with most of them on that side of things. And again, the schools have different priorities, different issues and what have you, and I think there is a giant leap needed from these students when they get into their first year of university. The environment is very different, everything's online, etc., and I think there's a gap there that needs to be filled. We are speaking to University of Pretoria, for example, has a fantastic outreach program with their core kind of recruitment area where they're dealing with the schools and they do open days to say, this is what it's going to be like and all of that, and the community outreach programs. But not all universities are like that, and I think one of the issues we have in South Africa is the dropout rate, or the throughput rate as they call it, is very low. So someone who starts in their first year and that actually goes on to finish a university degree is alarmingly high. And I think there is more work to be done by ourselves, companies like ourselves, by schools, by universities, to actually bridge that gap. And I think that would definitely help with that going forward, with the throughput and student success. But I think there's programs that schools can run, or again like the outreach programs, workshops that you can do when school leavers are in matric still, giving them an idea of what university life is going to be like. Good example is I won't say it is, we're dealing with a university at the moment. We are creating an online course for them that is not associated at all with any of the degree programs. It is a course for matrics going into university, but the course is being developed in such a way that it kind of mirrors what an academic course would look like. There is assessment, so a matric student who applies to this university will get access to this. They'll go in and they'll have to do all the registrations and they'll have to follow this course, and it's all about online learning and the environment at the university and all of that. And the hope there is that when they then finally start in January, February 2021, that they will have had a little taste of what it's like to learn online, to access small things like that. And I think that something like that, schools and universities should consider that, because I think it does close that gap. It's not perfect and it's not the silver bullet, but it certainly will help. My name is Ian Light. I'm the CEO of Eiffel Corp, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to watch this.